Okay, what's up, guys? It's been quite some time. Sorry for the delay. I have been busy with school, especially with exams coming up. And I've been studying for them, but that is no excuse. And today I got a special video for you guys, the second way from St. Thomas Aquinas on how to prove God. Now, before I really get into the video, I just want to let you know that I'm not trying to force my beliefs on you. Regardless if you're a Christian, a Muslim, or a theist, or an atheist, I'm just really here to provide you philosopher's thought. Right? I'm providing you Thomas Aquinas' thought. So please don't feel like I'm pushing my beliefs on you. But still let me know your opinions or your thoughts. I would love to hear them out. Right? And that's basically what I just wanted to say. Well, first, right off the bat, we have this painting. This painting is called The Triumph of St. Thomas Aquinas, and it shows the four evangelists on top with Jesus, and Aristotle and Plato on the side of St. Thomas Aquinas in the middle, and beneath him, oh no, that's the commentator, Averroes. And it's literally the meaning of the painting. It's the triumph of St. Thomas Aquinas, his dominion, right? Alright, so before we get into the second way on how to prove God in Aquinas, we need to step back and define several things, because since the second way is going to be using efficient cause, we have to introduce Aristotle's for cause, because Aquinas is going to be using it. Okay, so first, the formal cause is the structure or essence of a thing, material cause is what something is made of, and efficient cause is what brings something into existence or changes it. Final cause is the purpose or end toward which something is directed. However, the term efficient cause is also switched or interchangeable with agent in scholastic philosophy at times, right? And efficient causes actualize potencies by exercising their own active potencies, and by active potential I mean the ability or capacity to affect something else. Okay, and so this is how Aquinas formulates the second way. He says in the Summa Theologiae, the second way is from the nature of the efficient cause. In the world of sense, we find there is an order of efficient causes. There is no case known, neither is it, indeed, possible, in which a thing is found to be the efficient cause of itself, for so it would be prior to itself, which is impossible. Now, in efficient causes, it is not possible to go on to infinity, because in all efficient causes following in order, the first is the cause of the intermediate cause, and the intermediate is the cause of the ultimate cause, whether the intermediate cause be several or only one. Now, to take away the cause is to take away the effect. Therefore, if there be no first cause among efficient causes, there will be no ultimate nor any intermediate cause. But if in efficient causes, it is possible to go on to infinity, there will be no first efficient cause, neither will there be an ultimate effect, nor any intermediate efficient causes, all of which is plainly false. Therefore, it is necessary to admit a first efficient cause, to which everyone gives the name of God, right? Oh, sorry, I kind of skipped. Okay, but there is also another formulation by a Neo-Thomist philosopher. His name is Friar Lagrange, a very prominent Neo-Thomistic theologian and scholar and philosopher. I recommend you reading him. He is excellent on this, right? Don't just read Aquinas. Also read Aquinas' commentators like Thomas de Viocahedon, right? And so he says in his book, God, His Existence and His Nature, we are not here concerned with movements or changes which happen in the world, but with efficient causes upon which depend such permanent beings as plants, animals, and men. In other words, this proof does not start precisely from the principle of motion or from beginning, but from being, which is the terminus of becoming, and leads us to admit the existence of a first efficient cause, which is necessary not only for the production of all things, but also for their preservation in existence. In the world, there are efficient causes which are essentially subordinated to one another. For example, all those cosmic influences such as the chemical action in the air, atmospheric pressure, solar heat, etc., which are necessary not only for the production, but also for the preservation of plants and animals. Thus, the ancient philosophers used to say that man and the sun cooperate in the generation of man. For the sun is necessary both for the production and the preservation of vegetable and animal life on this earth of ours. Now, these efficient causes, which are thus subordinated to one another, presuppose a first cause which is not caused. On the one hand, it is impossible for a being to cause itself, for in that case it would exist before it actually did exist. On the other hand, it is impossible to proceed ad infinitum in a series of essentially subordinated causes, as we have seen above. First proof. Hence, there exists above the caused efficient causes a first cause which is not caused, which has being from itself, not from another. This first cause must, therefore, be being itself, a point which will be more clearly understood at the close of the next proof and may justly be called God. Alright, next one. Now, the second way is interesting because it differs from the first way, because the second way is trying to prove God from existence or being instead of motion. And as Lagrange puts it, if you fell asleep while reading that, I don't blame you, right? This argument is proving the existence of a first efficient cause that is necessary for everything else to exist and the preservation of their existence. Now, in the world, there is efficient causes that are essentially subordinate to each other, which means some are essentially lower. However, if you have a series of essentially subordinated causes, it presupposes a first cause that is not caused. Now, Lagrange notes that it is impossible for a efficient cause to cause itself, because then it would exist before itself, which is impossible. And it is impossible for an infinite regress, because a infinite regress of efficient causes means no first efficient cause, and thus to take away the first cause is to take away the effects, and therefore nothing exists. Just like how St. Thomas says, and that's just absurd and wrong. And so therefore there has to be a first efficient cause that is itself uncaused. And as Lagrange puts it again, this first sufficient cause has being from itself and not from another, and it is being itself. Another way to present the argument from efficient cause, or the second way, is this one. There are efficient causes in the world, that is, producing causes. B, nothing can be the efficient cause of itself, for it would have to be prior to itself, in order to cause itself. C, there cannot be an infinite regress of essentially related efficient causes, for unless there is a first cause of the series, there would be no causality in the series. Therefore, there must be a first uncaused efficient cause of all efficient causality in the world, E, to which everyone gives to this name the name of God. Okay. Now, just to recap on essentially ordered causes, I'm going to give you an example of one. For example, a person's hand is moving a stick, which in turn moves a rock. So the hand is moving the stick, and the rock is moving because of the hand is moving the stick, and the stick is moving the rock. Now, the rock is only moving insofar as the stick is moving, and the stick is only moving insofar as the hand is moving. So in a per se causal chain, members of the series only move in virtue of the prior members. So Scotus also emphasizes that in essentially ordered series of causes, the prior members are of a higher nature. So in this example, the hand is of a higher nature. Now, for Aquinas, accidentally ordered series can extend to infinity. If you're looking at the past, it can extend to infinity in the past. But a essentially ordered efficient causes cannot go on to infinity. So another example of essentially ordered causes would be the one Lagrange gives us, that is cosmic influences. For example, the sun is needed not only to create plants and animals, but also to keep them alive. Now, since Aquinas established there has to be a first sufficient cause, that is God, you might ask, why must it be God? And that's why I just wanted to get a little bit more. I don't want to just stop at, so therefore there must be a first sufficient cause. I want to show you why the scholastics believe it must be God. Okay, so if there is a first uncaused deficient cause, it must have being not from another but from itself, right? This is true regarding one of Scotus's theorems, that is theorem 3.5, and you can find this in Treatise on the First Principle. I believe this is on chapter 3. And so theorem 3.5 says, what is uncausable exists necessarily from itself. Right? And if something necessarily exists from itself, then it is not contingent or dependent on anything else for its existence. So if this being is not contingent on anything else, then it is absolutely simple, because composition implies a form of dependency, since to be composite would necessitate a composer of the parts and therefore potential in that thing. And this first efficient cause therefore must be pure act. And why again? Because in scholastic philosophy, anything that is a compound of act and potency requires a cause. And it must also be pure act, because since it is simple with no type of composition at all, since composition does imply potential, as I have said, it must therefore have no potential. And this thing, since it is not a contingent thing, because since it necessarily exists from itself, a contingent thing requires a cause for its existence, namely an external cause. And a contingent thing is something whose essence is distinct from its existence. And this is a little bit more advanced, because this is going to get into Aquinas' de ente, or on essence and being. But basically, essence is what a thing is. Essence is what a thing has its existence through, right? And existence is simply that a thing is. So essence is the definition of a thing, and existence is that it is, right? For example, oh, sorry, I hit my mic. For example, we know what a unicorn is, but we can still be ignorant that it even exists. So, in a contingent thing, the reason why a contingent thing has its essence distinct from its existence is because whatever has its essence distinct from its existence can only potentially exist, not actually exist. So when we say that God is pure act, or that God has its essence not separate, when we say that God doesn't have his essence separate from his existence, we're saying that his essence is simply to exist. And so you might ask, well, doesn't this make God's existence self-evident? In of itself, the statement that God exists is self-evident in of itself, but not to us, right? Watch my first way, where I explain how St. Thomas clarifies that it's not self-evident to us because we do not know the essence of God, but it is self-evident in of itself, since God's essence is his existence. Okay, so the first efficient cause is not contingent because it exists from itself, and therefore its essence is to exist and is pure actuality. Now remember, scholastics do not hold that everything has a cause, but rather that only things that undergo change or come into existence are composite or are contingent. These things need a cause. And so why doesn't God need a cause? Well, sorry. Scholastics argue that only what is a mixture of potency and act requires a cause. But God doesn't need a cause because he is pure act. So, by pure act, there is no passive potency in God. There is no room for improvement in God. God doesn't have the ability to be affected, right? Now, remember that anything that exists is either pure act or composed of both act and potency in scholastic philosophy. And if something is just pure potency, then it doesn't exist, right? And so anything that exists in reality has both act and potency, except God, since God is pure act. Now, remember that from the first way, that a being who is pure act necessarily has divine attributes. Make sure to watch the first way, where I show why being pure act necessitates several divine attributes. For example, I'll just give you a quick one. Since God is pure act, could God potentially gain power? No, because he has no room for improvement. He already actually is all powerful. Could God potentially know something? No, because God is already pure act and he already actually knows everything. There is no room for improvement in his knowledge. And just to sum it up in one final formulation, this is how it would go. Premise 1, in the world we observe efficient causes producing effects. Premise 2, nothing can be the efficient cause of itself. 2a, if a efficient cause caused itself, it would be more prior than itself and would have existed before itself, which is a impossibility. Premise 3, in the world there is efficient causes that are essentially ordered or related. For example, cosmic influences like chemicals in the air, or the example Lagrange gives us, the sun preserving life, right? Premise 4, it is not possible for an essentially ordered series of related efficient causes to go on to an infinite regress. 4a, if there was an infinite regress of essentially ordered related efficient causes, there would be no first efficient cause, and thus to take away the first cause is to take away the effects, and so therefore nothing would really exist at all, which is absurd, and there would be no causality. So this is kind of a reductio right here. 5, hence there exists above the caused efficient causes, a first cause which is not caused, which has being from itself, not from another. Premise 6, a being that has being from itself is not contingent on anything else. And 7, a thing that is not contingent on anything else is absolutely simple. 7a, composition implies dependency since composition necessitates a composer, but a being that has being from itself does not depend on anything else for its existence. Premise 8, a being that is absolutely simple is pure act. 8a, anything that is absolutely simple has no type of composition at all, and since composition implies potentiality, it therefore follows that a absolutely simple being cannot have any potentiality at all. 9, a being that is pure act must be immaterial. 9a, matter is potentiality because it can be otherwise and moved, and a pure act being lacks potentiality. 10, a pure act being must be all-knowing and all-powerful. 10a, it cannot potentially know something, it must already actually know everything, hence it is omniscient. 10b, it cannot potentially gain power, it must already be actually all-powerful, hence it is omnipotent. And if you have noticed, I just simply pasted some of the premises from the first way to here, since I think it fits really well here. 11, this pure act being must also be intelligent and rational. 11a, among beings, those with intelligence are more perfect than those without, and therefore the highest being, pure act, must possess intelligence. And 12, the conclusion, this first efficient cause that is pure act, absolutely simple, perfect, and all-knowing, is who we understand and call, or justly call, God. And that is basically the end of the second way from Thomas Aquinas. The reason why I cite scholars like Scotus or Lagrange is because if you're going to read Thomas Aquinas, you should also know the other scholastic philosophers. And I do this not to try to be excessive in my videos, but I really want you guys to, if you guys are more interested in learning more about this, I do recommend looking at those philosophers. Look at Lagrange. Look at Edward Feser. Edward Feser is really, really good if you want a simple introduction to scholastic metaphysics. But make sure you also read Aristotle first. And then you can look into the commentaries on Aquinas, like Cajetan, right? And that's basically it. Alright, thanks for watching.